my name is Kat, and today I have some books to haul and some recent reads to discuss. So I have 10 books here to share with you all today, and I have already read half of these books. So 2 of them I read quite a while ago, so I wouldn't exactly call those recent reads, but we'll get into that when we get into that. For now, let's kick things off with the Booksplosion Book of the Month pick for January, which is Lore by Alexandra Bracken. And this month we're being sponsored by Disney Books, so huge thanks to them. This is a brand new release. It just came out on January 5th, and it's a standalone urban fantasy. And basically every 7 years, these 9 Greek gods and goddesses are punished for a past rebellion. As punishment, they are made temporarily mortal, and then they are hunted by those who want to kill them so that they can claim their powers and immortality and essentially replace them as gods. Our main character is a girl named Lore, whose family was killed during one of these hunts, so she fled and she wants nothing to do with the gods anymore. But when the next hunt comes around, 2 participants seek her out for help, and Lore finds herself reluctantly dragged back into the middle of things. I adore Alexandra Bracken's books, so of course I am very excited to read this one. Again, this is the Booksplosion Book of the Month pick for January, so Christine, Jesse, and I will be discussing this in all of its spoilery glory in the live show at the end of the month. I'll go ahead and put all of the info about that down below in the description if you're interested in joining us. I think it's gonna be a real fun time. The next book I want to talk about is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. And this was the Booksplosion Book of the Month pick a couple months ago in October. I haven't done one of these book haul recent reads videos since September, so it's a little overdue talking about it now. But I have talked about this book before, back in my spring releases video last year, because originally this book was gonna come out in May, I believe, but then like the day after I posted my spring releases video, it was announced that this was being pushed to fall. In this book, we follow Yadriel, a trans boy who comes from a family of brujos and brujas who can summon spirits and release them. Now, Yadriel's traditional family is not very accepting of his gender, so he is determined to prove himself a real brujo. But in his attempt to prove himself, he ends up accidentally summoning the wrong ghost. Instead of summoning the ghost of his cousin who has been mysteriously murdered, Yadriel ends up summoning the ghost of Julian, his school's resident bad boy. And Julian is not about to go quietly into death. He has some loose ends he wants to tie up first, and only then will he allow Yadriel to release him. So Yadriel reluctantly agrees to help because ultimately they'll both get what they want. But the more time Yadriel spends with Julian, the less he wants him to leave. And as they deal with Julian's unfinished business, they start to realize that Julian's death and the death of Yadriel's cousin might just be related. I really enjoyed this book. It was everything I wanted it to be. I loved Yadriel's story of trying to prove himself and get his family to accept his gender. And I loved Julian's story as well. He was such a fun character, and for a ghost, he brought a lot of life to the scenes he was in. This was a fantastic standalone. It was a great world, great characters, great romance. So yeah, I definitely recommend it, and if you have read this and you want to know more of my spoilery thoughts, then I will link the Booksplosion live show down below so you can catch up on that if you're interested. The next book I want to talk about here is Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is a contemporary novel told in verse that follows 2 main characters. First, we have Camino, who lives in the Dominican Republic and who really wants to become a doctor. She wants to go to the States and go to med school. Her father lives and works in the United States and sends her money so that she can attend a nicer school and have a chance at accomplishing her dream. And then our other main character is Yahaira, who lives in New York with her parents and has discovered a secret of her father's that she fears could ruin everything. But when a plane traveling from New York to the Dominican Republic crashes into the ocean, both of these girls are left without their father. And the fallout from this plane crash is more than either of them ever expected. This was such a beautiful and gripping book about grief and family. The writing in this book is absolutely gorgeous. One thing thing that I love about books told in verse is the sort of blending of poetry with a story narrative. You know, books told in verse use less words than a traditional novel, but that means that every word needs to be chosen carefully, and just the rhythm of language in this book was so beautiful. This book does deal with some heavier topics like grief and sexual assault, so it's not the lightest read, but it was still a beautiful, moving book, and I would definitely recommend this. The next book that I have here is How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories by Holly Black. This is a companion to the Cruel Prince trilogy, and you definitely gotta read that trilogy first. You can't start with this one. Even though this is a collection of short stories told from Cardan's perspective, and some of these stories take place before the trilogy, but some of them take place during and after the trilogy. So you read the trilogy first. It's great. I loved it. And I loved this too. I adore Cardan. I think he is such an interesting character, and I loved seeing more from his perspective. And I think what I loved the most about this book is that while it is a collection of short stories that take place before, during, and after the trilogy, it's a lot more cohesive than I expected going into this. Like, there's a very strong narrative line that runs through the stories that I really enjoyed. It is also just gorgeously illustrated. Like, it's a beautiful little book. So yeah, I loved this and would absolutely recommend it to anyone who enjoyed the Cruel Prince trilogy. It is a fantastic companion / follow-up. The next book I have here is The Tower of Nero by Rick Riordan, and this is the 5th and final book in the Trials of Apollo series. Now, I have only read the first 2 books in this 5-book series, so buying this one was a little premature, but I know that I love Rick Riordan's books, and I know that I'm gonna want to read the entire series. So I bought the final book, and I'm planning to marathon the whole series eventually. I barely remember books 1 and 2, so I'm definitely gonna have to reread those before I get to books 3, 4, and 5. But I do remember loving Apollo, his voice and his humor. I just adored in those first 2 books, so I'm excited to get back into the series and read it all. The next book that I have here is A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor by Hank Green, and this is the sequel to An Absolutely Remarkable Thing and the conclusion to that duology. I really enjoyed the first book. It's about first contact and also social media. It was a really grounded sci-fi that blended mystery and humor in such a fun way. So yeah, the first book was great, and I have heard equally great things about the sequel. I'm probably gonna have to reread book 1 again because it's been a while and I really want to get the full impact of this duology. But yeah, I'm really excited to get to this, especially because we're following more than one character in this follow-up. So it'll be really interesting to get some more perspectives on all the events that are happening. And finally, I have here the Ember in the Ashes Quartet by Sabaa Tahir. Book 1 is An Ember in the Ashes. Book 2 is A Torch Against the Night. Book 3 is A Reaper at the Gates. And book 4, the final book, which just came out in December, is A Sky Beyond the Storm. I love this cover. Laia looks so badass here. Now with this quartet, I have already read the first 2 books, but I read them like 5 years ago, so it's been a while. And I'm definitely planning to reread these because I feel like I've forgotten quite a bit. And I want the full impact of the series when I read books 3 and 4. I'm so excited to get back into this world with these characters. I remember reading book 1 all in a single sitting, which is a little bit ridiculous because it's like a 500-page book. But it was so gripping and engaging. It just hooked me from the very beginning, and I flew through it all. I've been doing my best to avoid spoilers for these 2 books, but I have seen glimpses of people being emotionally compromised, so I guess I have that to look forward to. And I am looking forward to it. Like, I love it when a book ruins my life in a good way. And I think that's what I'm gonna get with this series. And because I am picky about my series matching, I am already intending to buy this book again in paperback when it comes out so that I can have the whole matching set. I do really like the cover redesign. I just wish I could have them all in hardcover, you know? But yeah, that is it for this book haul / recent reads video. I would love to hear from y'all. If you've read any of these books, please feel free to share your opinions without spoilers, of course, please. But yeah, that is gonna do it for this video today. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a wonderful night, and I will have another video up soon. So I will see you then. Bye!